same thing is happening in Illinois. How about our yield? So let me go back. Our yield, 48, 51, 53. Yeah, we're cutting back our acres, but our yields keep going up. And yeah, we did have an above average yield this year for wheat. So the deal is, not only did North Dakota have a good year, but Kansas had a good year. The years before that, either we had a good year and Kansas stunk, or they had a great year and we stunk, so we kind of offset each other. But this year we both had some pretty good yields. So what happened to total bushels? The wheat market's trying, man. The wheat market's trying to cut acres, get rid of some wheat, but we just keep getting too good a yield. How about inventory? This is all wheat blended together. Again, spring wheat, winter wheat, durum, soft wheat, white wheat, everything. How are we sitting for wheat? Pretty good. Probably above average. Now, on a sidebar, 1986, we had 95% carryover stocks. We had enough wheat in storage for a full year of consumption.
At the end of 86.
At the end of 86.
That was the worst drought year in North Dakota?
88. 88 helped get us out of the reserves of 86. Here's spring wheat only. Oh, and by the way, Canada had a record spring wheat production this year. We're not short of wheat, sorry to say.
How about Durham in Canada?
Durham and Canada the same way.
They were good.
They were good. We got lots of Durham. That's why I think spring wheat acres and Durham acres will be down a bit next year.
They were saying this morning an increase in Durham around here, and I'm thinking there's some new guys going to get their education.
They're going to get their rear end handed to them. Don't do it. Don't do Durham here. You'll get the bushels, you're not going to get the quality, and they will dock you on the quality, and you're going to get your rear end handed to you. Don't do it, please. Don't put that on the radio.
Too late.
Too late. Yeah, okay. I got to be careful what I say now, darn it. All my good jokes are just like, I can't do it. All right. So this is one of the big questions I'm beginning from ag lenders. So we've got low prices. Is this a V where prices have come down and they'll rebound pretty quickly? Or is this like a hockey stick where prices have come down, we're going to be here for a few years? By the end, I'm going to try and answer that.
Depends.
It does depend.
Yeah.
It does depend. So why would a lender be concerned about that? Because if it's a V, right, we have a drop with a recovery, what does that mean for their loan portfolio? Yep. I mean, they're willing to take some more risk because it looks like it'll rebound. Now, what happens if it's a hockey stick? We come down, it stays for a few years. Now what happens to their loan portfolio?
Higher risk.
Yep. They start to get a little bit less aggressive. They're going to be a lot more cautious. And you should be as well when it comes to investment in machinery, or if you're looking at buying some land or whatever. If you're looking at long-term investments, the answer to that question is going to be important. Okay, so what's going to be, it depends. It depends on what? You're absolutely right. It depends.
Any variable you can think of. The
No,
we've consumption, on and on.
Yep. So the biggest thing is, how quickly can the U.S. get rid of its excess? I'll make this as simple as I can. The faster we can get rid of all this corn and soybeans and wheat, the quicker we can get to higher prices. Now, my problem is, as I said, in about 3, maybe 4 months, we're going to be planting another crop. In about 9 or 10 months, 9 months, we're going to be harvesting another crop. Our window is pretty short here, guys. We got to get after it. How are we going to get rid of a whole bunch of corn, soybeans, and wheat?
Use it or export it?
Use it or export. That, exactly. So let's go through. Where do we focus on?
Both.
You got to do both. Agree. Okay, so let's look at this. This is corn. Blue line on top is feed. That's whole corn run through a combine going to an animal. I'm going to talk about residual in just a second, because those are added together, but most of that's the feed pile. The little dots on the far right-hand side are the current USDA forecast. So this is after the report, And yes, USDA did increase the amount going into feed. Okay, guys, with the blue line, can we get to that number? Just because USDA forecasts it, they've got some real numbers and they got a lot of forecasting. Do you think we can do that? I mean, when you look at our feed, that's a number we haven't seen since like 03, before ethanol. Can we do that?
If it's cheap enough.
Not with the cow herd as small as it is.
Okay, so let's talk about the cow herd. You're on the right track. Let's talk about the cow herd. What's happened to cattle numbers? They're down. They're like at, I mean, they're not record lows, but they're down to like in recent history, modern history, whatever you want to call it. But wait a minute. What's happening to meat supply? What's happening to the quantity of meat supplied?
Slaughter weights are way up.
Slaughter weights are way up. Okay, anybody that's dealing with livestock, you know this. What happens to your feed conversion as that animal gets bigger?
Tapers off.
It goes, and it can go down fast. I mean, those last pounds that you're putting on that steer or heifer, that takes a lot of corn to put those last pounds on. Now, with really cheap corn and really high beef prices, that works, right? And that's what's happening. That's the reason our slaughter weights just keep going up and up, because we keep getting cheap corn and high beef. Now, are beef cattle the only species that eats corn? Not even close. Who else eats corn? What other species eat corn?
Pigs.
Pigs. Okay, so what's, and chicken. And you're missing one more.
Turkey.
No, I'm going to put turkey and chicken.
Fish.
Fish is rounding here. Dairy. Dairy.
Thought they were cows.
No, they're not beef cows.
Oh.
I said beef cows.
Oh, you did.
Yes, I did. All right. So let's talk about hogs. Yes, the hog industry has rebounded. It's recovered. They had some really bloody years. They're rebounding now. They're better. They're kind of back to about the same herd size we saw a couple years ago. There's really no incentive for them to go a lot higher because pork prices have been moderate. How about the poultry guys? They've already rebounded. We got so much chicken we don't know what to do with it all. I mean, literally, they kind of overdid it. They expanded, they kind of overdid their expansion, and they're trying to figure out what do we do with all the chicken. Okay, what about dairy? Well, dairy's finally making a little bit of money again, but they got to be careful because they can overdo it really quick. And oh, by the way, their silage piles are full. Right? We just talked about the silage piles. Well, okay, I can get you part way. With what we just talked about, I can get you part way. I can't quite get you all the way to the USDA number. But
The Ag Secretary has to have a conversation with Trump and get him to get rid of corn for us.
We'll,
He was incentivized to take
Leroy, we'll get to that in a second.
Oh, okay.
Hold that thought. I want to talk about one more thing, though. Let's talk about residual. So when USDA uses the term residual, it's got a very special definition. It's got a special meaning. And basically, the way USDA uses it, it's like any bushel that got produced, but we don't know where it disappeared to. Now in Canada, when Statistics Canada does their supply-demand numbers, they call it spoilage and wastage. That's fair, right? 17 billion bushel corn crop. You think we'll have some spoilage and wastage? Some. Okay. Now, just to reinforce that, I got a buddy of mine. This is to see if you're awake. I got a buddy of mine. He has my job at Iowa State. We started our jobs at about the same time in the late 2008 is when I started. He's retiring. I don't know how the heck they must pay better than NDSU. But he's retiring. Anyway, earlier this fall, he and I were at some national meetings, and Chad Hart is his name, and Chad and I were talking about this. And he said, so what do you think about the residual number? Is it going to go up? Oh yeah, it'll go up. He said, Iowa's going to have a lot of Hawkeye corn. I said, Hawkeye corn? What the heck is Hawkeye corn? And he's a Cyclone, right? Iowa State Cyclones, University of Iowa Hawkeyes. What's Hawkeye corn? He says, oh, all black on the outside and nice and yellow in the middle. Oh yeah. So think about this. We're lucky up here. We really are. I know it's cold as blazes out and it's going to be cold for the next couple of weeks, but you know what? That's a godsend if you're storing corn outside. We've had a couple of weeks of really nice weather, right? I'm already hearing some elevators are having some corn piles getting hot on them. Think about being in the middle of Iowa. They get snow, but they also get rain in winter. It's been in the 50s and low 60s, not the 40s. What happens to a pile of like 2 million bushel plus corn? What happens in the middle of that pile when you get a little rain and it gets nice and warm? I think we're going to have some spoilage and wastage. You had a question?
Didn't they just have a big rain a few days ago or a week ago or something?
Yeah, they did.
It looked like a real big rain.
Yeah. Okay, so, and they're pumping corn out as fast as they can, trust me. And I'll show you some numbers in a minute. Now, here's my problem. When I try and do that math, I think this still might be a little aggressive. It's possible. It's possible. Again, cheap corn will do some funny things. So the other thing that Chad and I were talking about said, you know what we really need to do is bring back the corn stoves.
Yeah.
Remember those corn stoves we had a few years ago? You could take the corn, it was so cheap you could just use it for fuel.
Sure. But $120 barrel oil would help that situation too.
Yeah, but we don't have $120 barrel oil, do we? We just invaded Venezuela. Come on, man. I'm picking on you.
Okay, I can
Okay, let's move to ethanol. The red line.
Well, the price of oil should help that.
What's that?
The price of oil should help ethanol, shouldn't it?
Okay, so cheap oil will help ethanol.
Not blend more.
Well, okay, so here's the trick to that question. Yes, so corn prices are low, gasoline prices are low, but ethanol is a fuel additive. We don't take a gallon of ethanol to replace a gallon of gasoline. We add ethanol to our gasoline for what? Octane. So you're closer than you are. You're closer because when oil gets cheap, gasoline gets cheap, what happens to the miles driven? It increases, which means we got to blend more ethanol because we're driving more. Kind of counterintuitive. So you notice it is up a little bit. Yes, we have some extra capacity. The ethanol plants they're doing okay. They're not like kicking it. They're not printing money, but they're not losing money. So there really isn't really an incentive for them to expand or grow other than whatever they have to supply for the fuel. So I think USDA is pretty close. By the way, Department of Energy surveys all of the ethanol plants and asks them how many gallons of ethanol did you make last week? So we have weekly updates, and you can back calculate how much corn that means. It's pretty simple. Can we expand those fast enough to get rid of more corn in the next 9 months? No.
What do you think about the value of an ethanol plant for sequestering CO2?
There's only one plant that I know of that can do that.
Well, I know, but
It's out in Richardson.
well, there's more than that out there. But the question is, what's the value, and is it important to the United States government to pay to sequester CO2?
As of right now, no.
Oh, I thought it was. Okay.
No, the ones that really like sequestered CO2, the ethanol coming out of the Richardson plant out in western North Dakota, because they just take a pipe and go straight down and pump the CO2 back up. What's that?
The CO2.
The CO2, yep. The ethanol, the carbon footprint on that is fantastic. Every gallon of that's going to California. And it's because of the low carbon fuel standard they have in California. It has nothing to do with Washington, D.C. This is all about California government.
It's lucky that they got that market because there's plenty of ethanol plants in California, you realize.
Ethanol plants in California, there's a few of them, not like there is in Iowa and Illinois.
No, of course not, but Pacific Ethanol in California.
Yeah, they have some.
So what's the deal with, like, they've been talking about doing ethanol and jet fuel, trying to
Okay, so
hear about it and then it
yeah, no. So that's a great question. So let's talk about SAF, Sustainable Aviation Fuel. And again, this is really driven. The U.S. was headed in this direction, and of course, with change in administration, they're saying no, we're not that interested anymore. But the Europeans are, and the Europeans are still pushing hard. And if you're Delta or United or American or Allegiant or whoever, and you fly into Europe, you got to be worried about this. So they're very concerned about sustainable aviation fuel. You got to bring the carbon footprint down. So it's all, and 1.0 is current jet fuel. And you got to bring that down far enough. And that's where the carbon math, the carbon calculations get to be important. Okay, and I won't go through the full long story, but how do you get SAF, sustainable aviation fuel? How do you get fuel, jet fuel, that has a carbon footprint that's low enough to qualify? There's two main sources. You can use ethanol, or you can use a lipid, soybean oil. So think about this. We're already taking soybean oil, refining it, and actually like cracking it like a refinery, like an oil refinery, and making diesel fuel. Well, diesel fuel and jet fuel are like cousins. There's only a couple carbon molecules that separate those two. So to tweak it a little bit more and pump out jet fuel is pretty simple. Our problem is we don't have as much soybean oil as we do ethanol. I mean, we got like 15 billion gallons of ethanol and only a few million gallons of renewable diesel. Now, the problem with ethanol, there's two problems. Number one, under the standard system, the carbon math doesn't work. Because the first thing is you got to make corn into ethanol, and you got to take ethanol and refine it one more time to get it to jet fuel. Yeah. And by the time you do that, unless you take the carbon and sequester it, the carbon math doesn't work. Okay, now chemically we can do it. We can do it on small scale. We can take alcohol, ethanol, and make it into jet fuel. We know how to do it chemically. We're still trying to figure out how do we do it at scale. How do we do this at massive scale? We're still trying to figure that out. We have a couple small plants in the US that are doing it right now, and they're trying to figure out. This is like the ethanol industry, the US ethanol industry in the 70s. So this is probably, I mean, it has great potential. I do think it's coming. We'll figure it out if there's enough incentives, but we got to have some incentives. This isn't going to happen by accident. And if we can figure it out, hang on to your hats. This could really change the landscape. Because when I do the math, we don't have enough acres. Agriculture's this big, energy is this big. Agriculture cannot be the substitute for crude oil. There isn't enough. There isn't enough globally. We just can't do it. We have to figure out where do we fit best. And we're trying to figure that out now. So longer term, I'm really optimistic about this stuff. I am very optimistic, and I'm watching it really close. In the next 9 months, it's not going to be enough. And I'm worried about the next 9 months.
And what about the soybean processing plant at Castleton that was built specifically to process soybean and strip the oil to Dickinson, where you just were?
I'll talk about it.
Okay.
Hang on just a second. You're getting ahead of me, which is great, because I want you to do that, right? You're just like a half a step ahead. That's fantastic. Let me finish this and we'll stop. So the green line is everything else. What's the black line? Exports. In the next 9 months, exports is the only thing we can grow fast enough to be able to get rid of our corn. And so I'm watching that really closely as kind of a barometer saying, well, how are we doing? Now also notice, and I don't have the charts right here, but 2022-23, we had much higher corn prices. So exports act like our shock absorber. When we don't have very good supplies, we got really high prices, which of those quits using fastest? Exports. And then on the flip side, when we got a lot of corn, prices drop, which one expands fast enough to suck it all up? Exports. So if you correlate prices, because here's 2012. What happened for corn prices in 2012? Yeehaw, here we go. Right? So look at this, and corn prices did the exact opposite. So that's our shock absorber. Now, fortunately, what USDA is forecasting, last year was a record export year. USDA is forecasting an increase. Now, is that the right number? We're going to cross-check that in a second. What about soybeans? Okay, blue line is crushing demand. The amount of soybeans that go into a crush facility. And I hate to tell you this, but yes, USDA can count. I know sometimes you wonder about that.
You can or can't?
They can.
Oh.
They can. So, here's my point. The crush industry has been expanding for 10, almost 15 years. It's a combination of new plants like Castleton and Spiritwood.
All across South Dakota.
and a couple in South Dakota, but the guys in Iowa and Illinois have been expanding. They have an existing plant, they're making them bigger. And that's been as much of an expansion as the new ones. Okay, so this little dotted line includes all this new capacity coming online. They can do the math. Now, is that we're going to be able to expand crush demand fast enough to get rid of all of our soybeans? No, we're not. Now, this is the other reason soybeans went down on Monday. Part of it was because corn crashed, and soybeans said, oh my God, what's going on? But the other part is, this dotted line is the current forecast for U.S. soybean exports. And that went down. So USDA so it was up here, and it dropped down to there. Now, if you look, the last time, this is trade war number 1. That was our export pace in trade war number 1. The dotted line right now is below that. Our current exports for soybeans are below what we saw in 18 and 19.
That's Bill Wilson's proverbial black swan.
Is it?
Showed up on Monday.
On Monday, it was a shock. I don't know if it was a black swan.
Oh, you don't?
No, I don't. I wouldn't class. Maybe Bill would. I wouldn't class. But it was unexpected. It was usually a black swan is something you just don't see coming. I mean, it's something we didn't even know this existed. I mean, that was the whole idea behind black swan. That's why they call it. For years and years and years said that there is no black swans because we've never seen one. It's never been verified until we saw one. Well, USDA missing a number is not an unusual event. Okay, I mean, I usually defend USDA a lot, but they don't get it perfect. They don't get it perfect. Okay, so here's my problem. We're struggling right now. How about wheat? Okay, blue line running through the middle. USDA calls that food. It's actually wheat milling, the amount of wheat that goes into a wheat mill domestically. I mean, nice, steady, stable number, right? I can even forecast next year's number. Take my little crayon, I just keep going right across, right? Now, here's my problem, though. This is kind of unsettling to me, because I had to review some research papers here recently, and I never even really thought of this. What's happened to the U.S. population in the last 25 years? It's up. It's up pretty significantly, actually. So what does that mean for per capita consumption of wheat and flour products? It's going down. So long term, we got to be thinking about that. How much wheat do we really have to have domestically?
Yeah, it makes me wonder, do you think that new food guide pyramid with less grains in it would have any effect? Do you think that would hurt that at all? No?
Well, okay, so I think we're already seeing some of that. So the question was, is a new food pyramid, because it's an inverted pyramid, right? Before it was a pyramid that went like this, now it's a pyramid that goes like that. Wheat, I mean, bread products is at the bottom, which means that's smaller amounts. They're pushing protein. You know, we've been doing that for 15 years with the keto diet and all this kind of low carb. And so I think some of that is a reflection of what we're seeing. Will the pyramid itself make a difference? I doubt it.
People actually listen to the government.
Well, okay, so where it does make a difference, I don't know. Do you watch the food pyramid every day? I don't. I mean, do I follow it? I don't. But it does have an impact on food aid programs. Food stamps, institutional, like hospitals and nursing homes, the food assistance there, as well as schools and school systems. So it does have an impact, but more on the institutional side, not necessarily general consumer side. I hate to say it, but we do eat a lot of high processed food. I hate to admit it, I had a bag of Doritos yesterday, one of those little snack bags. Not a whole big bag, just a snack bag. Okay, so, and anybody in the wheat industry knows we've been relying on exports for a long time. Now, if you notice, we've had a couple really rough years. USDA is forecasting kind of a recovery. We're still not anywhere near where we were a few years ago, but it's better. And the short answer, why did that happen? Russia's been kicking our butt. Russia can do winter wheat so much cheaper than we can. And spring wheat can only keep a little bit of a premium over winter wheat. So whatever happens in winter wheat, spring wheat usually follows. You know, there is a rubber band effect, right? If you think of winter wheat as the rock, the spring wheat, because spring wheats are smaller, there's smaller production. You know, spring wheat can separate itself from winter wheat only so far, and then all of a sudden it's done. If it goes beyond that, then the wheat mills go to something else. So who buys U.S. grain? This is where we get into politics. Now, guys, we're going to have to talk some politics. Leroy's favorite topic. Now, I want to be very clear. I'm going to try and be as neutral as I possibly can. I'm not running for political office. I don't need your campaign support. I don't need your vote. So I'm going to try and be as politically neutral as I can, but we do have to talk about some politics and trade agreements. So let's go through the numbers. Now, I've got to explain this table, do the same thing for wheat, the same thing for soybeans. I'm just going to start with corn. So these 4 columns right here are 12-month totals. Those are marketing year totals. Now, again, marketing years from harvest to harvest, so it's not a calendar year, but from September through August. So this is a 12-month total. Let me come over here. This is year to date. So of the 2025 crop, how much have we sold so far? Now, these are contract for sale. They can be delivered throughout the rest of the year. So this is just sales. And this is as of yesterday's report. So USDA is finally caught up with all the information on their, they've got backlogged because of the shutdown. They're finally caught up and they're in real time again. So this is the most recent data we have. So this is so far this year. This is the same period last year. And then this is last year's total. Okay? For comparison. So let's look long term, what's been happening? Who's our number 1 buyer of U.S. corn? Mexico, right. Okay. Now I also want to point out, remember I said about 22, 23, we had higher prices, and look what happened to our export pace. Right? It dipped and it came back again. Okay, number 2 is Japan. Number 3 is Colombia. Has Colombia been in the news recently? Where is Colombia located? Right next to Venezuela. A lot of things happen in Venezuela. And I'm going to pick on President Trump just a little bit. He was the one that did it. He said, look, Venezuela, wake up. And he had the wake-up call. And then he pointed to Colombia and said, shape up or you're next. They're our number 3 corn buyer. Oh, and by the way, if I'm the captain of an ocean vessel and I go into port, I'm headed for Colombia, and I got to go through a bunch of aircraft carriers and destroyers, I'm not a little nervous, aren't I? The insurance on ocean freight has gone up. So I just want to point that out. Not everybody knows Colombia is number 3. Okay, South Korea, Spain. So let's look at the numbers. How are we doing this year versus last year? Last year was a record. Well, Mexico, quite a bit higher. Why is Mexico so high versus last year? Yep. New World screwworm. All those calves and cattle that were going to come up to the U.S. and be fed are where? Still in Mexico. They got to feed them. Okay, but wait a minute. That's not all of it, because look what's happened to Japan. They're up. Colombia is about the same. I mean, Korea, cripes, that's almost 4 times. Spain is double. What about friends in China? How much did they buy last year total? Okay, so let's put that in perspective. Again, this is one of those things where we as grain marketing guys throw numbers around. You guys say, well, is that big or little? So this is in 1,000 metric ton. So before it was in bushels, it's metric ton. All the trade is in metric ton. All global trade is in metric ton. We're the only ones left using bushels. I hate to tell you, but the U.S. is the last one using bushels. Okay. So one Panamax vessel, which is the biggest, they call it Panamax because it's the biggest vessel that can go through the Panama Canal. Okay? That's usually the standard size bulk carrier for grain.
Which Panama Canal?
Which Panama Canal?
Yeah.
The Panama Canal.
The one the Chinese built or the one we built?
The one that we built, but the Chinese took over and now we're running again.
That one.
That one. Okay? Now, there's different, the width is the same, but the lengths vary. But the standard size, the rule of thumb is one Panamax is about 60,000 metric ton. So on my graph, one Panamax, one ocean vessel is 60. How much did they buy from us last year? Half. Okay, let's also think about what does that mean for us. So it takes between 5.5 and 6 shuttle trains to load a Panamax. Let's just call 6 because it's nice to see the numbers. So that means they bought about 3 shuttle trains of corn from us all last year. I mean, there's elevators in this region that'll do 3 shuttles of corn in a week. I mean, that's not like big volumes. And how much have they bought so far this year? So let me ask a question. Has the lack of Chinese buying been influencing the corn market? Not really.
Well, it has been, but is that what you call political hay?
Well, look what's happened to the amount they've been buying us for the last 4 years. Remember what I said? They plant area-wise, they plant about the same area of corn as we do, and now they've got these hybrid varieties they're using. They're getting better producing their own corn. They don't have to buy it, and if they do buy it, they're going to Brazil. But let's look at the bottom line. Now, ROW is rest of the world. It's all the other countries that aren't on this list. Okay, so that's what this bottom line. And you know, everybody else is buying more too. So when we look at the total so far, that's like a 30% increase from last year. Last year's a record. Now, if China comes in and buys, now that would be a shock. And they usually buy, they don't come in small amounts. Now, my question is, can we hold that 30% increase? Because the USDA numbers, that's not a 30% increase from last year. Can we hold that big aggressive sales? What do you think?
Prices will have to stay down.
After 20-cent takeout, maybe, if we get prices of corn low enough. But what's going to happen in about a month? Brazil's going to harvest their corn. They're harvesting soybeans right now. In about a month or so, they're going to be harvesting their corn.
How was their soybean crop when they got started combining?
Fantastic. So for reference, the numbers I showed you for Brazilian production, that was the USDA numbers. They had 178 million metric ton, 178. The Brazilian CONAB, which is the Brazilian version of USDA, they came out with their estimate at 182. Last year, they were at 158. And last year was a record.
They're taking off.
Yeah, well, they added more area. They planted more ground. So it's not just yields. And by the way, the national average yield for soybeans in Brazil is almost identical to the national average yield for soybeans in the U.S. They just have more acres.
Do they add land every year?
They do.
Just keep?
Yep. And they got more to go. Depends upon who you listen to, but the number I've been kind of quoting is they probably have another 70 million acres. Again, for perspective, we planted 95 million acres of corn this year.
But that was pasture, and it's going into crop production?
Yeah.
Is what?
Yeah. Now, okay, so let's talk about that for a minute. This is the soil types in Brazil. Here's Mato Grosso right here. The blue and the green are Amazon jungle. The brown is savanna, prairie land. Guys, they're not expanding north into the Amazon. They are a little bit on the fringes. Most of the expansion is east. Okay, so this is always my joke, my story. You may have heard it before. If you're a farmer in Brazil and you had a choice of either breaking up CRP ground or breaking up forest land in northern Minnesota, which would you pick? Guys, this ain't rocket science, guys. Yeah, you can burn off the trees, but you still got all the stumps. And by the time you're done, what do you got? Sand. Now, I'm not saying that the savannas are great quality land, because they're not. But the Brazilian government is paying farmers about $25 an acre to break up their native pasture, farm it for at least 3 years, and they can do whatever they want to with it.
Oh. So they're paying them to farm,
They're paying them to clear it.
to clear it, and its production.
Right. Now, the other thing, guys, this is the Amazon jungle. This is not great land, but they got a lot of rainfall. This is like farming in Florida. You get a lot of rain. The land isn't very good, but if you put enough fertilizer on it, you can get a dang good crop. And by the way, they plant soybeans, they harvest them, and then they come back and plant corn. When the corn is done, they come back and plant soybeans. When the soybeans are done, they plant corn. So an acre here ends up to be 2 acres of cropland. 1 for corn and 1 for soybeans. Per year, if they can get enough fertilizer. Now, you guys are complaining that fertilizer prices aren't dropping. Why aren't fertilizer prices dropping?
Acres are increasing.
What's that?
Well, I said acres are increasing. although
And
not here.
it's not just in Brazil. They're buying lots of fertilizer. So think about all the fertilizer that they're putting on their land.
Do they have production facilities there, or they import from?
They're importing almost all of it.
Oh,
They're importing almost all of it. Oh, by the way, the other thing, dirty little secret, for the last couple of years, the Indian government has been buying fertilizer off the global market and selling it to their farmers at a discount because they need to increase their production as well. On top of that, China, which is one of the major exports of phosphates fertilizer, they stopped exporting and said, we're not going to export anymore, we're going to keep it for our own needs. They're growing more corn. They're trying to be more self-sufficient. So what happens when the demand for fertilizer is going up, a major supplier says we're not supplying anymore?
Really gonna go up.
What's that?
Really gonna go up.
So do you think your fertilizer prices are going to go down in 2026? The fertilizer market's a global market now, folks. 10 years ago it wasn't. Today it is. Even the manufacturers of nitrogen fertilizer in the U.S., if somebody also in the world will pay a higher price, guess what they're going to do? I mean, their goal is to make some money too.
best thing North Dakota can do is build themselves a nitrogen fertilizer facility using the Haber-Bosch process, using natural gas at Watford City.
Okay, and if it's a private company, they're going to ship it to whoever will pay the highest price.
Well, you said
Now, if it's state-owned, that's different. If it's like the state mill and elevator or the state bank, that's different. You take it out of state money, that's different. But if it's a private company that comes in and do it, what are they going to do? Highest bidder. If that's you guys, fantastic. And you probably have an advantage just because of logistics and shipping costs. You probably have an advantage to that. So it would help us. Please understand, I'm not against that idea, but just realize the economics of it.
maybe we could do both.
We're looking at, to do what you're doing, the last estimate I saw was over $1 billion worth of investment.
Well, maybe we should have did that instead of dig a trench around Fargo.
Most of that was from the Corps of Engineers, so.
That was,
I mean, it was federal. Most of that was federal money, but we won't get down that.
was just a
We're talking about grain here.
stimulus for Cass County.
We're talking about grain here. So did that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And they do have more expansion.
I
Now,
was hoping they could stop here sometime.
well, but so here's the point. I don't know. So two things. So I'm not contradicting myself. I'm just saying right now in the last couple of years, the incentive has been for Brazil to expand. Those incentives are changing quickly. Right? Corn prices are down, soybean prices are down. Bringing brand new land into production isn't cheap.
Well, that new land is awesome, but it's gonna wear out too.
Okay, so what are they going to do? So this is the other part to this. This is native pasture land.
Yeah.
And what they're doing is they're farming it for about 3 years, and then they're going to put in hybrid grass and put it back into pasture. Now, not all of it's going to go back into pasture, but Brazil has a huge livestock sector, beef in particular.
Your question earlier is whether we would rather break up trees or CRP down there. You said CRP. Well, if it's CRP, it must have been in crop production. It
Well, no, I use that analogy for the United States. In Brazil, it's pasture land.
That's what you meant. Okay.
Yep. If I'm asking you, if you had a choice in the United States between CRP or forest land, what would you do? Well, that's basically the same as the Amazon jungle versus the pasture land.
The wheat prices of 74 is why our fragile grounds got broke up in this state and then put into wheat and then the CRP after that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
then eventually they got brought out again.
Yep.
Now going back in.
Question.
But that could level out, because we need not free money and we need better markets.
Yep.
And that needs to switch
So-
somehow to get us where we need to be.
Okay, so let's talk one more thing. So let's talk of our economics versus theirs. There are farmers right now in Brazil that are going broke because they're going bankrupt too.
Okay.
Okay. Now, everybody complains. You guys complain. It's like, wow, man, the Brazilian real is so cheap. They're able to sell their soybeans so much cheaper than we can. There's some truth in that. But what does that mean for the soybean seed, the fertilizer, the chemistry, and the machinery they're buying off the global market?
Yeah, it would make imports more.
Import, very, very expensive. So if your currency drops, it's easy to sell. It's really hard to buy. Okay, and oh, by the way, most, not all, most of the ports where they're bringing fertilizer in are down here. And somehow you got to get the fertilizer from here back up there. From down here to the middle of Mato Grosso is like driving from Fargo to Frisco. It's about 1,100 miles.
So you're sort of saying it's starting to balance out almost, or starting to almost.
It is. So this is about the rate of growth. So in 2025-6, the crop they planted when we were harvesting, they increased about 3.5%. They've been between 2.5 and 3 before that. So, but the economics are changing. And if you guys want a really kind of an interesting quick study, University of Illinois, it's called FarmDoc. You can Google it, FarmDoc. They got stuff coming out daily or weekly. They got a whole bunch of things online. Google FarmDoc, U.S., Brazil, soybean, cost of production. And there was a report that came out about a month and a half ago. It's just before Christmas. And they compared the cost per bushel, not per acre, per bushel, for Brazil and the United States soybeans. And they broke it into two categories. They broke it into what we call variable cost, those annual costs, seed, fertilizer, chemical, fuel, lube, repairs, and the overheads, land, machinery. Okay? Cost per bushel for U.S. versus Brazil, they're about double ours. So if you take our cost of production per bushel out of seed, fertilizer, chemical, could double it, that's pretty close to what theirs is. Okay? Now you go over to the overheads.